New to Guild Wars 2 and unsure which class to play? In this video I'll quickly go over each class and their specializations with in-game examples so you have an idea of what to expect. So let's get started. I don't think there's a single RPG without the warrior class, which is why I'm happy that Guild Wars 2 did their best to reinvent this well-known RPG staple. Warrior in the Guild Wars 2 core games start off as warriors in most video games. Pretty standard weaponry and skills, straightforward, with little bells and flourishes. Revenant alleviates this however by recognizing that warriors don't always carry humongous swords, but are skilled with lots of different weapons. They can wield swords, shields, hammers and axes, but also longbows and rifles even, to spice it up a bit. With the Heart of Thorns expansion, warriors unlock the Berserker specialization and learn how to use torches in combat. The torch represents their fiery need for blood, though they do have to be careful that it is the enemy's blood and not their own that gets spilled. Later in the Path of Fire expansion we get to know the use of daggers, as spellbreakers are among the elite in Alona's army. Using their quick attacks with the dagger, they specialize in countering and taking down magic opponents, while defending their friends with magic fields. In the latest expansion, End of Dragons, warriors take on the pistols as a new weapon, and they learn their new main skill, Unsheathed Gunsaber. This weapon seems to come straight out of Monster Hunter World and is, as the name suggests, a blade with a gun attached to it. Speaking of staple classes in RPGs, the Paladin is another of those classics. In Guild Wars 2, this is the Guardian. Guardians are the soldiers, the protectors of the people, and they do so with righteous vengeance, enhancing their physical prowess with magic. They wield swords, hammers, but also scepters and even staves. It would be unwise to stand in the way of a Guardian, and even more so to hurt their friends, because after they've healed them, they'll be coming for vengeance. In the Heart of Thorns expansion, Guardians take a completely new form, and they focus on taking down the dragon threat, as well as the other giant beasts that lurk in the jungle. A dragon hunter now, Guardians master the use of the longbow and holy traps to catch their foes and deal massive damage. As we open up Alona in the Path of Fire expansion, Guardians delve into the history of this rich land and emerge as firebrands, focusing more now on healing and cleansing evil from the world with righteous fire as they wield axes. In Kantha, our righteous protectors become vindicators of justice, as willbenders have kept the throne of Kantha safe for hundreds of years, silencing threats before they can even fester with their quick dual-wielding sword skills. Revenant is the only class locked behind expansions, but they are unique to Guild Wars 2, claiming their powers from the spirits of fallen warriors. Revenant got introduced in the Heart of Thorns expansion and are warriors with skills of the mists. Wielding swords, staves and hammers, they dart through the mist, striking their enemies' weak points wherever they can. Their first specialization unlocks the Herald with a shield in their offhand. These mighty warriors invoke the legendary dragon Glint to help keep their party alive and stacking buffs in order to do so. During Path of Fire, the Revenant learned to call upon the spirit of Kala Scorchrazor, a Char renegade who led the rebellion against the Flame Legion using her shortbow. The renegade can now summon her troops to take down their enemies. In the final expansion, End of Dragon, we learn to compel two ancient adversaries and use their powers combined to wield a greatsword and decimate the battlefield. Instead of dodging, Vindicators leap high into the air and crash down, devastating their enemies. Another staple RPG class is the Ranger. These are mostly how you'd expect them in Guild Wars 2, but don't go anywhere, because Revenant took another spin with them and I'm sure you'll love it. Rangers start out with a pet of their own and throughout the game can tame more and more of those, choosing those which suit the situation. Their main weapon is of course the longbow, but they can also wield sword, greatsword and even axes, all the while their pet aiding in the fight. During the Heart of Thorns storyline, Rangers learn how to wield staves and call on nature's power to heal their allies, becoming druids. Druids excel at keeping themselves and their allies alive, foregoing most of their damage capabilities. This changes in the Path of Fire expansion, where the Rangers can become one with their pet. Soul Beasts learn how to use daggers, but also how to merge with their current pet, learning new skills and annihilate their enemies. In Kantha, the Rangers' connection to the wilds of the forest causes them to become the Untamed, wielding a powerful hammer to devastate those that would harm nature. As your pet whittles down your enemies, you strike the final blow and send evil off to the mists. Coming from World of Warcraft, I thought that Thief would be like the Rogue. Not quite. While thieves do utilize the shadows, they don't focus on it as much as the former. A standard thief is a trickster, using quick dagger or pistol and even sword attacks to dart around the battlefields, striking at weak points in their adversaries' defenses, or strike at them from afar with poison arrows, hopping in to finish them off when their health is low. During Heart of Thorns, the hard nature of the jungle gave the thief all they needed to learn how to use their environment to their advantage, focusing even more on maneuverability. Using staves, the daredevil becomes an absolute whirlwind of death, that can decimate even the strongest of foes using their extra endurance bar. The Deadeyes are the mercenaries of Alona, and in the Heart of Fire expansion, the next specialization for thieves. Learning how to use rifles and opting to keep a safe distance, they prefer to pick their targets off one by one before the target even realizes what happened. End of Dragons takes an entirely different spin on the thief as they wield a scepter now. The Kanthan forces excel at using the shadows to both debilitate their enemies as well as keep their allies alive. Spectres use the shadows to their advantage and use Shadow Shroud to link up with their allies. The name Engineer should maybe give you an idea already what to expect of the next Guild Wars 2 class, so let's get right into it. The Engineer only has pistol and rifle as their main weapons, but make up for this with the amount of skills and kits they can use. Building turrets to assault their enemies, equipping a flamethrower, grenade kit, bomb kit, or even elixir gun. The Engineer is super fun to play and will have you pressing buttons non-stop as you blow your enemies to smithereens. Heart of Thorns expansion gives the Engineer a close range build, wielding massive hammers as the Scrapper whacks away at their foes. Kept safe by their gyros whirling about them as both a protective field as well as an offense tool. Their main purpose, however, is the support of their allies by laying down emergency fields. In Path of Fire, Engineers are specialized in using holo skills to enhance themselves, keeping a delicate balance between damage output and not blowing themselves up, quite literally. The Holosmith uses a proton sword and their photon forge to lay waste to their enemies. One of Kanthan's greatest contributions to our heroes is the use of Jade technology, and Engineers jumped on this like you couldn't imagine. The Mechanist learned how to wield a mace, but let's be honest, the real hero here is their new Jade bot that fights along with them on the battlefield. Everyone knows what a Necromancer is, but even then Revenant did a great job of making them stand out from expectations. The Necromancer in Guild Wars 2 can summon undead minions to do the heavy lifting, or focus on signets to enhance their own powers. Using axes, daggers, scepters or staves, they defile their surroundings and corrupt their enemies before enveloping themselves with a death shroud, draining the energy from those around them. As a Reaper, Necromancers learn how to use a greatsword in the Heart of Thorns expansion. The Reaper is a harbinger of death, and their greatsword takes on the form of a scythe to cut through your enemies, chilling them to the bone before claiming their life. In Alona, the Necromancer learns how to use a torch and summon sand shades to debilitate their foes or bolster their ally. They lose their own survivability with the loss of Death Shroud, but their team appreciates them more for their sand barriers. The Harbingers is the latest of the Necromancer specializations, where they learn how to use pistols in the End of Dragons expansion. These pistols are enhanced with their dark powers and alchemical substances, as the Necromancers again loses Death Shroud and has to balance an increase in power with their actual health, using the Harbinger's Shroud. An Elementalist is known in other games as a mage, but Revenant has definitely made them special enough to let them hold their own class name. An Elementalist uses weapons like the Stave, Focus and Scepter to channel their elemental powers. Fire, water, earth and lightning bend to their will, and Elementalists freely switch between these elements during combat, each time changing their main spell set to accommodate their chosen element. An Elementalist's power peaks during the Heart of Thorns expansion as they become the Tempest. Using their Warhorn, the Tempest is able to overload their current element and deal massive damage to their foes. Elegant as a master swordsman, the Path of Fire sword-wielding Weaver not only weaves their attacks in combat, but is also able to weave two elements together. A bit trickier to learn, the weaving of two elements creates yet another set of new spells to master and feels incredibly satisfying to pull off. During End of Dragons, the Elementalists imbue their spells with the power of technology, using the hammer to channel their Catalyst spells. The Catalyst creates wells of immense power to lay waste to their enemies. Another very unique class is the Mesmer. If you played Esper in Wildstar, then you might know where we're going with this. Mesmers use swords, staves, scepters, or even greatswords to channel their mystic powers as they assault their enemies' minds, as well as summon clones. The enemy won't know where to look, as clone after clone sends a barrage of psychic blasts their way. In Heart of Thorns, the Mesmer learns how to control time while wielding a shield. They focus on creating wells of time ripples, hastening their allies' skills, or slowing down their foes as a Chronomancer. The Mirage borrowed its name from the mirages you can see in the Path of Fire desert landscape. Wielding axes now, the Mirage can not only create clones to confuse their enemies, they can also switch places with them, leaving the enemy even more confused than they already were. End of Dragons has brought the Virtuoso specialization for the Mesmer. With this, they drop their illusory powers in favor of daggers. Using the power of their mind, they are now able to manifest psychic daggers to beset their foes. Now, if you want to learn more about Guild Wars 2 before heading out on your adventure, I would recommend this starter video that will give you all the basics you need for your adventure into Tyria. If you appreciated this video, make sure to boop that like button, but even more so, have fun while exploring. Take care, and bye-bye.